وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Okay. So we'll take 2 minutes exactly. If anyone, I don't plan on taking inshallah more than 40 minutes, but if anyone wants to pray Maghrib now, I'll give them some time to do that inshallah. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Who is Sweatband again? Ahlan wa sahlan. So one more minute inshallah. Again, hopefully we should be done 8:10. So if anyone wants to pray Maghrib after, that's what I'm going to do inshallah. Just leaving the door open for all ends. طيب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How's everyone doing? Inshallah everyone is good. Hope everyone is staying safe. I'm picking at my arm because I climbed a tree today. I think I cut myself too many times, but it was fun. So I hope everyone's doing good. Khair. Feel free to throw anything in the chat. Just try not to leave the subject too much because then it distracts me and I get confused about what we're talking about. But generally speaking, you can answer my questions if I ask questions, and you can throw your own questions up there as well. Like I said, just try as much as possible to stay to the topic, inshallah. So, bismillah. We're continuing our series about the children around the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And again, just as a recap, the whole point of this class is to see how the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam treated the children that were around him and how children treated the Prophet and what was expected of them and how they grew up and what did they, as young people, what did they offer and what did they contribute to Islam and what they sacrificed. Why do you have a maximum of one more comment? I don't know, maybe it detected you. So last week we talked about the first person in our series. Who can remind me who that was? Who did we talk about last week? The sooner someone answers, the sooner we can finish. So who's our person last week? Talib. Not Talib. Close, but it's not Talib. It's Talib's brother. His younger brother. Not Talib. Not Abu Talib. Abu Talib's son. What's his name, guys? Not Omar. No, he just left the family completely now. It's not Omar. I'll give you a hint. It's bin Abi Talib. The son of Abu, not Musa, not Muhammad. Ali, thank you, Ali. Ali bin Abi Talib. Remember, when you say bin or ibn, that means the son. So Ali bin Abi Talib. Literally, I know it's going to sound weird, but his name is literally Ali, the son of the father of Talib. So the father of Talib is Abu Talib, Talib being his eldest son, but Ali is the son of that. So Ali being the youngest one. So Ali bin Abi Talib, that's who we spoke about last week. And we said that Ali bin Abi Talib is the cousin of the Prophet. We talked about how he was the first child in Islam, the first child that accepted, and he was one of the first people, period, that accepted. He was maybe the third or the fourth person that accepted Islam from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So he's definitely from the firsts. And we talked about how he defended the Prophet ﷺ in the early days of Mecca, and we talked about how he himself offered himself up and as a sacrifice when the assassins came to kill the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, that he slept in the Prophet's bed while the Prophet escaped. Alhamdulillah, he wasn't killed. He was able to escape to Medina as well. We said that he walked all the way to Medina on foot by himself, and he got to Medina. And where we left off was that Ali was staying at a house where the Rasul ﷺ made a house in Medina that was just filled with bachelors. It was like a bachelor pad going on there. And I left it off on a cliffhanger, was that this is when people started telling Ali, like, maybe you should start thinking about getting married. We're going to pause there, and we're going to backtrack all the way back to the beginning of the seerah again this time to talk about a different person. Who are we going to speak about today? It's in the title. Just so I know you're alive, who are we talking about today? It's not Talib. Come on, guys. We're not speaking about you. We are speaking about Fatima. Very good. Who is Fatima? Fatima, her full name is Fatima bint Muhammad. So, bin means son, bint means daughter. We are not speaking about Omar. Omar was not a child around the Prophet. But we are speaking about Fatima bint Muhammad. Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad. So he is the daughter of Muhammad. Now, even though the class is called the children around the Prophet, this class is not specifically about the Prophet's own children. But we're going to take a quick tangent and talk about the Prophet's children. How many children did the Prophet ﷺ ever have? Total. How many children did he have? So how many children did the Prophet ﷺ have? 11. 11 children. No. Somebody said 6. Okay, it's not 11, Ziyad. Somebody said 6 children. Close. 7. We're seeing 8, 9, 5. Ziyad, relax. So, from the children that we know, we see 7 also. From the children that we know that in his lifetime, the Rasul ﷺ had 3 sons and 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 daughters. So that comes up to 7. He did not bury that many. All right, come on, relax. Now, the Rasul ﷺ, it is true that all of his children died in his lifetime except Fatima. So his own daughter survived and lived after he died. The rest of his children passed away, but give me 1 second. So 7 children. We have Al-Qasim, who was the first eldest son. Al-Qasim did not live very long. He lived till about 3 years old, and then he passed away. That's why we call the Rasul ﷺ Abu al-Qasim, Abu Qasim, like the father of Qasim. Qasim was his eldest son, but Qasim didn't live past 3. Then we have the Rasul ﷺ's daughters. We have Zainab, Kulthum. Sorry, Zainab, then Ruqayya, then Kulthum. Then we have his other son, Abdullah. Well, first we have Fatima, then Abdullah. Abdullah also didn't live very long. He passed away in infancy. And then his final son, number 7, was, does anyone know his last son, what his name was? I'll be mad if people don't know this. What was his last son's name? Nope, not Omar. What was Rasul's son's name? His last one. Does anyone know? Ziyad, not Ziyad. Cute. Ibrahim, very good. So, Ibrahim, Ibrahim was his last son, and Ibrahim was the only son that was not from Khadija. So all of his children, their mother was Khadija, alayhi salam, radiallahu anha. Khadija was the mother of all of his children except Ibrahim. Ibrahim, his mother was Maria, and Ibrahim also did not survive past infancy. So that's just a quick tangent so that you get an idea of the children of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So we're going to talk about today Fatima. Now, if the Rasul had so many daughters, why are we only talking about Fatima right now? We are going to mention a few things about the other ones, but there's a lot of noteworthy things about Fatima. Number one, I might have mentioned this last week, I don't remember. When the Rasul ﷺ first became a prophet, Ali bin Abi Talib was, we said, 8, 9, maybe 10, maximum 10 years old. But he was probably around 8 years old, very young, a little kid. Fatima was either not even born yet or a newborn. So Fatima literally was born at the time Islam started, at the time that prophethood of her father started. So Fatima's in a unique position where she grew up watching Islam thrive or watching Islam grow right in front of her. She never grew up um, she never grew up in the times before Islam. She never saw the easy life that her older sisters had. She never saw the life of peace because the moment Islam started, she lived a very difficult life. That puts Fatima at a kind of higher level than the rest of her sisters, because the rest of her sisters, by the time prophethood started, Zainab was already married, and her two older sisters, Ruqayya and Kulthum, they were still young, very young, 8, 9. Ruqayya was about 10 years old, so they were also young, but they did not they had already seen what life was like before, right? So me, for example, when I grew up in Texas until I was about 7 or 8 years old. So I know what life there was like. I still remember, even though it was a very, very long time ago. I still remember. Very different from somebody who didn't see that at all. So that's number one. Number two, the Rasul Sallallahu love for Fatima was very, very well known. He loved Fatima so much, and Fatima took a role, even though she was a child, which is what this series focuses on. Fatima took a role in the Rasul Sallallahu life that showed her maturity and showed how much she had to sacrifice, that she had to do things that no child should have to do. So before we get into that though, does anybody know what does the name Fatima mean? Fatima is a very common name now, and even at that time, Fatima was a common name then. And I'll show you why. What does the name Fatima mean? Any guesses? The speaker. No. Flower. So we'll get to that, but that's not what Fatima means. That's not what the name Fatima means. So Fatima Zahra, I think that's what you're referring what Bara was referring to. Zahra was her name, but what does the name Fatima? Ma ma'na ism Fatima? All right, we'll give one more chance. We'll see if anyone knows. Captivating. No. So Fatima, some of the scholars, what they say the name Fatima means, when you wean somebody, just because you put in caps doesn't make it true. It's not captivating, no. When you have a baby and a baby is breastfeeding, or a baby is drinking its mother's milk. When a baby is weaned off of that and stops drinking and stops breastfeeding, we call it fatim, right? That they're no longer on that. Fatima means somebody who is already weaned, which is a strange thing. But what does the meaning of this mean is that Fatima is a baby that was born mature. The Rasul named her at that, meaning that she's born mature. She's already mature when she's already born. أحسنتي فاطم الواد ومنعه من الرضاعة. Exactly, that's أحسنتي, mashallah. That's exactly what it means. Why was she named Fatima? Trivia, Khadija's mom was named Fatima. So Khadija's mom was also named Fatima. Fatima was a very common name at that time. Even Ali bin Abi Talib's mother was named Fatima. Fatima bint Asad. So Fatima was a very popular name at the time and still is. But her name also shows that the Rasul named her that she's mature. And that's very true of her character, that Fatima radiallahu anha, she was very mature for her age. When the Rasul first made his public announcement, we're gonna rewind. When the Rasul or fast forward, I mean, when he, yes, Asad means lion, so Asad was also a name back then. Interesting thing that you brought up, when Fatima bint Asad, not Fatima bint Muhammad, when she had Ali bin Abi Talib as a baby, she wanted to name him Asad. But Abu Talib didn't like his name. He said, I don't like the name Asad, let's name him Ali instead. So Asad is also a common name back then. Yeah, they used to name people lion. So if you guys remember last week, when the Prophet, peace be upon him, he stood on the mountain of Safa and he made his announcement to the people, and he made his announcement public. And we said that the only person that raised his hand was who? Ali bin Abi Talib, right? Ali was the one who raised his hand. Fatima, despite being a little girl, even a lot younger than Ali, was also in the crowd. And the Rasul named her in the whole crowd when he was giving his speech. He even said, Fatima, even Fatima, she is not going to have any protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La amliku lakum min Allahi shay'. Says, I don't have anything to protect you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except yourself. And he names Fatima. Why did he do that? To show it, because he loved Fatima so much that he was even in front of everyone. He said, even Fatima, I can't stand in front of her on the day of judgment. What does this mean? Every single person has to answer Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by themselves. You can't say, for example, that, oh, my dad was a sheikh, so I'm going to Jannah. It means nothing. And the Rasul told his family many times, but he told them, don't come on the day of judgment. Everyone comes with their good deeds and their actions, and you guys come and say, we are the family of the Prophet. That's not good enough. So right then, even though Fatima was so young, he calls Fatima out and he says, La amliku lakum min Allahi shay'. Not even Fatima, I can stand for her or stand in her place on the day of judgment. To show Quraysh, to show them how severe his warning was. And you all know that Abu Lahab, he said, Tabbat yadak ya Muhammad. He cursed Muhammad out in front of everybody, and he got mad and walked off. So your question, what you're asking about, there is shafa' on the day of judgment, which we'll talk about, which is when people will intercede on other people's behalf, but nobody is going to stand in your place. وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. The Quran says, nobody, no bearer of burden will bear the burden of someone else. I can't tell you guys, for example, you guys do whatever you guys want on the day of judgment. I'll take your sins. I got it. I'll talk to Allah. Everything will be fine. No. That's not how it works. Or you can't go like, oh, no, I was friends with a lot of religious people. They read plenty of Quran, so I should be good on Yawm al-Qiyamah. That's not how it works. So as we know that Abu Lahab, his uncle, he got mad and insulted the Prophet, and he walked off. Now, I said that Zainab, the Prophet's oldest daughter, was already married. Kulthum and Ruqayya were not married yet, but they were engaged to the sons of Abu Lahab. So Abu Lahab had two sons, and they were engaged with the two daughters of the Prophet. When Abu Lahab saw the Prophet doing his announcement and his speech, he told his sons, he told them both, cut off the engagement. We're not marrying into his family. So he was so vicious with the Prophet that he said, cut off the engagement. Now, the two sons, Utbah and Utayba, one of them was very, like, I don't remember which one, but one of them was very polite about it. He said, I'm sorry, but I don't think this is going to work out. My father, he has issues with you, so let's just, cut this off. The other son went in front of the Prophet, in front of everyone, and spat in his face and told him, this engagement is off and curse you, just like my father said. And as a punishment, Allah sent a lion and ate that guy. True story. So he got eaten by a lion because of that. So, because he was um, very brutal and repulsive. But anyways, um, the Rasul's love for Fatima was very, very well known and very apparent. And this is interesting and very noteworthy. Why? Fatima was a girl, which is obvious, everyone knows that, but that you may not realize why it's so significant that the Prophet showed his love for Fatima. This was a society and a time that when they had baby girls, what did they used to do to them? I've mentioned this before. What used to happen to baby girls in the time in Mecca at that time? They used to get buried alive. They used to be killed. This not just treat them bad, they used to kill them. And the Quran mentions this. It's like وَإِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدُهُم بِالْأُنثَى ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. That if somebody had a child that was a girl, then his face would go black from how disappointed he was. If you guys think our society is misogynistic, their society was so misogynistic, where it's like, we want men, girls are useless for nothing except getting married and having kids. And it was considered shameful to have a lot of girls or to show love for them. And it wasn't for no reason. It was because they believed in their culture, because their culture, again, they lived in a harsh environment, they lived in the desert. A son could go to war, a son could hunt, a son could do heavy lifting, could protect the family, could make money. A daughter, in their eyes, what they saw, a girl, what is she going to do? She's going to get married to another family and she's going to give them sons. And then she's going to be useless to us. So she's basically a baby factory. So for some families and some tribes, especially the poor ones, that they said that, we can't afford a daughter. She's just going to eat and sleep and she's not going to do anything good for us. They would bury their daughters when they were first born. The Rasul ﷺ, of course, definitely 100% rejected this culture and this stupidity. And he openly showed his love for Fatima as kind of like a sign to that culture that, listen, you guys have your religion and your way where you guys treat women this way. The most loved person in the world to me is my daughter. Even though he loved his daughter so much, Fatima, as a young child, she saw the brutality that Muslims faced at that time. She literally grew up seeing Muslims being attacked. She saw them, and this is obviously not an environment anybody wants to live in. You talk about bullying and what bullying does to somebody. Imagine, like, you see bullying on like an entire industrial scale, kind of. Khadija, Fatima's mother and the Rasul's wife, if you guys know from the seerah, when they were boycotted out of Mecca and they were forced to stay outside in a valley where there was no food, no water, Khadija, literally, she starved to death. She starved so much and she lost all, her health, and she lost so much weight. Even after the boycott ended, when they got back to Mecca, she just couldn't get her health back. She withered away and she passed away. Imagine seeing your own mother being kicked out of the city and forced to live in the desert, and she slowly, her health starts deteriorating and she dies. But despite that, Fatima took up the role that Khadija left when she passed away. Meaning Fatima, who at this time she's maybe 10 years old, she's now taking up the role of mother in the household, and she's the one supporting the Prophet. When the Rasul ﷺ would be beaten, and he was beaten many times throughout his life, like when he would go out into the city, the people of Mecca would beat him, and they would harass him, and they would bully him. He would come back, and she would be the one cleaning his wounds and cleaning his injuries and his bruises and stuff, to a point where they called her Ummu Abiha. Fatima Ummu Abiha. She was the mother of her father. Meaning she, even though she was the daughter of the Prophet, she acted like his mother, making sure he was safe, making sure he was all right, feeding him, taking care of him. This is a 10-year-old girl, subhanallah. And when the Rasul ﷺ sees, what she's doing, he says, "Oh Fatima, wouldn't you be happy to know that you are the queen or the master of the women of Jannah?" And when she hears this, she's surprised. I'm going to be the queen of the women of Jannah, Sayyidatu Nisa'i Ahl al-Jannah. And she doesn't go like, "Yes, I knew it." She's surprised by this, and she says, "What about Maryam? What about Maryam ibn Imran?" He says, "What about Mary, the son of Imran?" Which we know Maryam, the mother of Jesus, is known as the greatest woman of all time. So she asks about this. She says, "What about Maryam?" And the Rasul said, "She was the best of her people, just like Khadija is the best woman of our people. But you are going to be Sayyida. You are going to be like a master, a queen of the people, of the women of Jannah." So he makes a distinction between who's the best and who is the queen. So he says that Maryam was the best woman of her time and of her people. And she is one of the women promised Jannah. But he says, just like Khadija is the best woman of our time, but you will be the master of the women of Jannah. Now here's a little trivia also. The Rasul ﷺ mentioned 4 women that are going to go to Jannah. Of them, he said Maryam, Khadija, and Fatima. There's one more. Does anyone know who the last one is? Trivia time. Who is the 4th one that goes to Jannah? The 4th woman. That doesn't mean there are only 4 women that go to Jannah, but these are the 4 that the Rasul ﷺ promised that they would go to Jannah. The answer might surprise you. Adam's wife. Good, but no. Maryam. Okay, we already said Maryam. Asiya. Very good. Asiya. Who is Asiya? Asiya was the wife of Fir'aun. Can you imagine? The worst man who ever lived, his wife is one of the women promised paradise. And we skipped it in our Sunday school talk because of the Corona thing, and people really want to get to the Day of Judgment. But in the story of Musa, you really find out why Asiya promised Jannah, and she's mentioned in the Quran, and she was tortured by Fir'aun, and she stood up to Fir'aun. She was the only person in the whole household that stood up to Fir'aun openly. Adam definitely had a wife. Hawa was his wife, so that's not true. But Asiya, she stood up to Fir'aun openly, and Fir'aun tortured her to death. And before she died, she could see her house in Jannah. So that's just a quick trivia. Just so that we don't take too much time. One of the most painful moments of Fatima's life that shows, again, what she had to deal with as a child, that she had to do very adult things even though she was a child. So there was one instance, and this was in the last years of Mecca, when things were getting really bad to a point. This is why they decided to go to Medina, because things were getting very difficult in Mecca, especially after Khadija passed away and after Abu Talib passed away, because Abu Talib was the one protecting the Prophet. Now that he's passed away, so the Rasul ﷺ, he was praying at the Kaaba one day, and okay, anyways, the Rasul ﷺ was praying at the Kaaba one day, and while he was praying, and the Rasul ﷺ, he was very brave. He didn't care if people were going to harass him or attack him. He always used to pray publicly, and he was praying at the Kaaba, and a group of the Quraysh were watching him from far. And one of them, of course, was Abu Jahl. Abu Jahl is the Fir'aun of our ummah. He was the worst person in the time of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And he was watching the Prophet. And of course, he just can't let him go. He has to do something, and he has to be the terrible human being he is. So he sees the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam praying, and he's sitting with his people, and they're making fun of him. They're shouting insults at him, but the Prophet doesn't care. He's focused on his salah. So Abu Jahl, he goes, he's talking to his friends, and one of his friends was a man. His name was Uqba ibn Mu'ayta. This guy was really fat guy, really that's very interesting. Okay, is Fir'aun Arabic Hitler? Yeah, you could. He wasn't Arab though, so Abu Jahl you could say is the Arabic Hitler. Anyways, guys, stop distracting me. I'm trying to tell the story, especially Ziyad. So, um, this guy, his name was Uqba. He was a really fat man, and he was a very disgusting, and he was a very like brutal person. Abu Jahl was talking to him, and he says, "Uqba, I dare you to throw something on him while he's dead, while he's praying." So he says, "Well, okay, what do you want me to throw?" And then he said, "Didn't we slaughter a camel yesterday?" He said, "Yeah." He said, go get its guts." So when they used to kill a camel, what they used to do, they used to take its meat, and then they would take everything left, the skin, the bones, the guts, the filth, all the nasty stuff, and they'd throw it in like a garbage outside of the city. So think of this. Uqba, who was like a full-grown adult man, who was a rich, supposed to be dignified, he goes to the garbage, picks up this camel carcass, flies everywhere, dripping blood, dripping, feces, dripping, the gore coming out of it. And he takes it and he goes up to the Prophet. And while the Prophet is praying and he's doing sujood, he goes and dumps the whole thing on his back. And this is a whole camel. So while he's praying, he dumps this whole thing on the Prophet, and they all start roaring with laughter. They think it's the funniest thing they've ever seen. This thing is so heavy that the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is being crushed under it, because it's like a whole camel. It's not like a sheep. You can maybe like push it off or something like that. A camel is a huge animal. So he dumps the whole thing on the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's back. He can't even get up. And they start laughing, and they're seeing the Prophet covered in all this filth and nastiness, and he's trying to get up and he can't, and that just makes them laugh even more. And one of the Muslims was watching this, and he wanted to do something. But this Muslim, he didn't have a tribe. He was one of the Mawali ibn Mas'ud. He didn't have a tribe. So if he tried to do something, they would have killed him. Guys in the chat, please relax. Stop arguing with each other. Stop commenting. The comment section is only for questions, guys, not for being ridiculous. So, he wanted to do something, but if he tried to intervene or tried to help the Prophet, they would kill him immediately, no questions. So he doesn't know what to do. He runs to the house of the Prophet, and he wants to see, is there anybody home? He's hoping that there's someone there. Hopefully Abu Bakr is there. Hopefully Ali might be somewhere. He's looking for somebody. He goes and knocks on the door, and who opens the door? It's Fatima. And she's the only one in the house, 10 years old. And he tells her what happens, and she runs immediately. A 10-year-old girl, she starts running, and she's crying the whole way there. She gets to what's happening, and she sees her father in this situation, and she starts trying her best to get the guts off of his back, trying to get the bones off, and she's scratching with her fingernails, and it's getting on her, and she's falling over, pulling and pulling, and they're laughing at her also. And she's crying and crying and crying. Imagine having to do this. And they're only doing this just because they're Muslim. So she finally helps the Prophet. He takes it off her back, and he kind of just brushes it off. And then he looks at his daughter, and she's crying. And he tells her, don't worry. Allah is going to give victory to your father. He says, don't cry, don't cry. Allah is going to give victory to your father. But she's in so much pain seeing her father like this that she just cries even more. And Abu Jahl and Uqba and the rest of them, they're all laughing. The Rasul ﷺ turns around and looks at them, and he raises his hands and he says, "Oh Allah, curse Uqba ibn Mu'ayta. Oh Allah, curse Utbah ibn Rabi'ah. Oh Allah, curse An-Nadr ibn Harith. Oh Allah, and he starts naming them one by one, and he says, oh Allah, curse Abu Jahl, and he curses every single one of them. Very, very rare for the Prophet to do dua against somebody. This is one of the only few times that the Rasul actually did dua against somebody. And Ibn Mas'ud was watching, and all of them, they stopped laughing and their eyes went wide because they've never seen the Prophet angry like this before. And he starts calling each and every single one of them, and then he gets up and he leaves. He doesn't do anything other than that. Ibn Mas'ud said, he said, I swear to Allah, I saw each and every single one of those people get killed on the Battle of Badr. So a few years later, when the Battle of Badr happened, every single person in that gathering was killed in the battle. So that's what happens when the Prophet ﷺ made dua against them. So, but this just goes to show you that Fatima had to make a lot of sacrifices, and she had to grow up very quickly, which is why her name is very fitting. That she had to do things for her family, especially her father, because you have to imagine, it's not easy being in the family of the Prophet. It's not something easy, especially in the time of Mecca. Being in the family of the Prophet, being a child in the family of the Prophet is very difficult. And Fatima had to live with that. But despite going through that, the sacrifice was worth it because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never ever ever lets anyone's sacrifice go to waste. If you sacrifice something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will reward you. And the reward of Fatima was that she was going to become the queen of the people of Jannah, and she was one of the most righteous. And honestly, I can't sit and talk about, the fasting and the prayer that she would do and how generous she was. Um, when the time of the hijrah came, Fatima did the hijrah with Aisha and Aisha's mother and Sauda and a few other ladies as well. So they did the hijrah together. So even at a young age, again, she has to do the same thing that Ali did, which brings us to Medina. By the time she gets to Medina, and after the Battle of Badr happens, so at the Battle of Badr and all the Abu Jahl and the rest of his gang is killed, it's a huge victory for the Muslims. They get to Medina, and now Fatima is about 16 years old. And this question starts getting asked, when is Fatima going to get married? So people got married a little younger back then. So nowadays, the suitable age for marriage is like 18. They keep pushing it up, unfortunately. I don't know why, but they keep pushing the age up. But back then, a 16-year-old was very normal for them to get married. And everyone wanted to get married to Fatima. Why? Because number one, she was a very righteous woman. Number two, she's the daughter of the Prophet. Who wouldn't want to be married to her? Number three, the Rasul ﷺ loved Fatima so much. So to be married to someone that the Prophet loved so much, you can imagine what that would do for you. You would be part of the family of the Prophet ﷺ. So who proposed to Aisha? Who proposed to Fatima? Abu Bakr proposed. Umar proposed. Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh proposed. A lot of companions approached the Prophet. Now when you have Abu Bakr and Umar approaching, some of the greatest men that ever lived, you would expect the Prophet to say, yeah, no problem. But when Abu Bakr and Umar approached asking to marry Fatima, his answer was, he said, I'll give you an answer later. And then later on, he said to them, she's young. Now, when he said she's young, it's not that she's too young to get married, because she's not. But what he meant was that I have someone else in mind for her, someone who's more around her age. So Abu Bakr and Umar were around the same age as the Prophet. So yeah, like you said, Abu Bakr and Umar, they wanted to get married to Fatima, even though they were much older than her, because they wanted to have a connection with the Prophet. They wanted to be married to someone that loved the Prophet. They cared so much about being in the family of the Prophet. But Muhammad told them, he said, she's young. So he had someone more her age in mind. And we're going to end the class here, and we'll leave that for next week, inshallah. Who did the Rasul have in mind to marry Fatima? You guys tell me. Who did the Rasul want to marry Fatima, guys? I'll give you a hint. His name has 3 letters in it. The first letter in his name is Ali ibn Abi Talib. Thank you. Okay, mashallah. So, next week, inshallah, I'm going to dedicate a whole class. Now, I know I said I would talk about the children around the Prophet, but Ali and Fatima both grew up around the Prophet as children, and they're still young. Ali is 23, Fatima is 16. And I really, this speaks to me personally. The way the Rasul ﷺ handled the marriage of Ali and Fatima was very, very beautiful. And how the Muslim community handled their marriage. Stop leaving at cliffhangers. Habibi, if I didn't leave at cliffhangers, we'd be here all day. Like the Sira is an amazing story, but like I have to stop somewhere. So how the Muslim community handles the marriage of Ali and Fatima is very, very beautiful. How everyone gets together, everyone pitches in, everyone's supportive, everyone wants to help. It's a beautiful, beautiful story. So I'm going to leave that for next week, inshallah, about how Ali bin Abi Talib and Fatima radiallahu anha get married, and they form one of the most beautiful uh, couples and one of the most beautiful families in Islam. That they formed the family that we call Ahl al-Bayt, the people of the family. Imagine Ibrahim was Disney. What? So, uh, oh my God. Does anyone have any questions? MashaAllah. I gotta stop reading the comments, honestly, especially from Ziad. Does anyone have any questions about anything we covered in this class or maybe last class? Nope, no questions. All right. Why does the video not match what you said? Ibrahim, I need the ending to the Sunday school thing. Well, wait till Sunday. Oof. Okay, I'm assuming there are no other questions. I'm stalling it just for 1 more minute, inshallah. Anything correct I said is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any mistakes I made is from um, my own problems or my own deficiencies. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يتقبل منا ربنا زدنا علما إن شاء الله. So if you guys like this class, tune in next week. Every Monday at 7:30, we'll be covering the children around the Prophet. So next week, inshallah, we'll be covering the marriage of Ali and Fatima. Is Ramadan delayed? You cannot delay Ramadan. So stay safe, everyone. And if anyone has any questions, you can message me. And if you haven't prayed Maghrib, please pray Maghrib. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.